In this video, you're going to learn ridiculously helpful tips for creating a schedule and sticking to it. These are the exact same unconventional tips that I use to create a schedule, even as someone who used to hate schedules and could never stick to a routine. Today, we're just going to totally turn upside down your idea of what a schedule even is. We're going to talk about the best way to make a schedule so you actually want to stick with it. We're going to talk about why it's so hard to stick to a schedule in the first place, and of course, what you can do about it, and tons of other practical tips that you can use today to figure out a routine that works for you. Really quick, my name's Suzanne, and it's my mission to remind you that no matter what's happened in the past, you can create any kind of life that you want to. I am here to help you find happiness, health, and success through following your inner wisdom. And if that's something that you're into, then definitely hit subscribe to stay up to date with new videos. So this video actually came about because you guys answered a poll and said that you were having trouble creating and sticking to a schedule, and that was your biggest obstacle to finding balance in life. And you also said that finding your balance was actually your biggest measurement for success, which I found really interesting, and I really loved that answer. So I relate a lot to the problems of needing to create a schedule. A couple of years ago, I was really struggling with adrenal fatigue, and it was because of my lack of a schedule. It just meant that I didn't really have any guardrails or boundaries on my time. So work was basically taking over everything, and I didn't make time to eat healthy or exercise. I was always sort of scrambling last minute to make meals or figure out dinner. And then let's not even talk about my sleep schedule, but the whole thing just created a lot of stress. And so creating a good schedule that works for you is really important because it not only makes you happy, but it also helps you stay healthy. Once I figured out a really good schedule for myself, it's totally transformed my life, honestly. And it's been the number one biggest factor in my ability to heal from adrenal fatigue and restore my energy, which I know a lot of people are dealing with fatigue these days, or even stress or sadness or some other sort of health, physical or mental health condition. And a steady routine is something that you can use to help you find balance, which creates that physical and mental health, and helps you create the success in life that you're looking for. So it's really important on a number of different levels. So let's just talk about how you create a schedule that works for you. So the first thing, I really want to help you reframe how you think about a schedule. It's not a rigid structure that you impose upon yourself. Thinking of it that way is a great way to not stick to a schedule because you're not going to want to. Instead, I really want you to think of a schedule. It's a typical flow of the habits that you do in your day. And those habits ideally are things that help you feel happy, that help you feel healthy, and that are also contributing to your sense of personal fulfillment, whether you're learning a new language or working on a creative project or painting or cooking or baking or singing or playing a musical instrument. Ideally you have different habits, and I can link my video about how to achieve your goals in 2024. But ideally you have a set of different habits that you incorporate, maybe not every day, but most days of the week. And we can talk about that later in the video. It's just that typical sequence of events. That's all a schedule is. And this is really key because then obviously life happens, right? And so a lot of times what stops people from being able to stick to a schedule is not every day is the same. And so you might feel frustrated if you typically, do XYZ from 8 to 9, and then, you have a very structured day. Everything's perfectly laid out in your calendar. And you're like, if I can just stick to my calendar, everything's going to get done. But a lot of times we have interruptions. Right now, I'm dealing with something major. I have a 17-year-old dog, and he has not been sleeping well at night, which means that I'm not sleeping well at night. So my schedule that I rely on to really stay healthy has been really disturbed. And so, but I have Because I look at my schedule as a sequence of habits, I'm able to make changes. And I'll talk about that more later in the video, but you're just able to adapt more because we all have times of life where things are busy or stressful or, just like the holidays that just happened. And you want to be able to just focus on, okay, am I getting am I completing these habits rather than am I sticking to this whole big schedule? So one thing that can really hold people back from sticking to a schedule, and this is something that I encountered, is that over time, because ideally you do want to get into a flow where you're doing the same routine over and over and over again. And I, for a long time, felt really trapped. Whenever I would do the same things in a row in the same for a long time, I would just start to feel annoyed or bored or trapped, like I said. And over time, I realized that that's because my nervous system, because I experienced a lot of trauma when I was younger. And so my nervous system was used to chaos. And a lot of us do have dysregulated nervous systems, whether we had trauma early in our lives or just the craziness. I mean, we all went through a pandemic. We're inundated with social media and news of every tragedy from every corner of the globe with all the technology. And the technology has a lot of assets to it, right? There's a lot of good things that come to it, but there's a lot of negatives. And one of those negatives is how all the ill effects on our nervous system. So a lot of us have dysregulated nervous systems. So having a daily consistent schedule is like a salve to your nervous system. It is so healing. And so what happened, the way that I overcame that feeling of being trapped is that instead of looking at my schedule as something that was constraining me or like keeping me contained, I began to reframe that and I just began shifting the way that I talk to myself. My schedule is something that gives me freedom. My schedule is something that makes me healthy. My schedule is a platform that it's like a springboard that lifts me up into more exciting aspects of life. Because when you have that schedule, that foundation, you're able to do so many more interesting and cool things. We have a lot of times, I think of myself as a creative person, and we have this idea that creative people are just all over the place and chaotic, but that's actually not true. I have a really great book. It's called Daily Rituals, and it talks about the daily routines of all these famous artists and creatives like Hemingway, really famous people. And what's interesting is that they all follow basically the same exact structure from day to day. And it's like when you show up at a certain time at your desk every day, then the muse knows to show up too. So that's kind of a misnomer that creatives are just all over the place. A schedule can be really helpful. And you might have an 8 to 5 job or obligations that sort of limit your flexibility. But ideally, a schedule will be individual to you and it will find that marriage, that halfway point between structure and flexibility. You want there to be enough structure so that it grounds you and keeps you centered, but you want there to be enough flexibility so that you don't have unrealistic expectations about sticking to some perfect sequence of events every single day, because that's just not realistic. So the second thing that I want to talk about is how to create your schedule in the first place, how to organize the sequence of your habits. So I want you to start thinking less about managing time and more about managing energy. Because have you ever experienced where you are able to do something in a very short amount of time, but maybe another time you're tired and that same task takes you a lot longer? So when that happens, honestly, you're better off just waiting until tomorrow. So every person basically has different energy levels throughout the day. Some people are morning people, some people are night people. My energy happens to peak at around 6 p.m. And again, this might not relate to you or apply to you because maybe you're stuck in a more traditional schedule. But then maybe if you are stuck in a traditional schedule and you have unique energetic needs, maybe you can begin to think about ways to shift your life, to shift your job. When I was in college, people made fun of me, but I didn't schedule morning classes. I didn't schedule any classes before 10 a.m. and I was still able to graduate. A lot of times we feel like we have to do certain things, but we don't really have to do certain things things are a lot more flexible. And I'll talk about that more in a minute too. So my energy is lower in the morning. So rather than forcing myself to get up and work right away, I take it slow. I eat my breakfast, I read a book, and then around 11, 12, my energy starts to build. I can feel myself getting inspired. I begin to want to work. And so then I start to work, and then I have an energy dip again around 2. So I take time around then. That's when I do my yoga nidra or some other sort of relaxation habits. So you want to just take note of how your energy flows throughout the day. When are your high times? When are your low times? And when are you have energy, but maybe you're not focused? That's a good time to maybe do some cleaning or cooking dinner or something like that. So just taking care to align your tasks with your energy levels can help you get more done in less time. It can also help you actually want to stick to your schedule because you're not forcing yourself to do something that goes against your energetic capacity at any given time. I also just want to note that your schedule is probably going to change from season to season. In the wintertime, a lot of people tend to be more tired. It gets dark out earlier. So I walk every day after, well, it depends. In the winter, I do it before dinner. In the summer, it's really hot where I live. So I walk after. So your schedule's going to change from season to season in nature and then in life. Maybe you were in school and you had one schedule and then you have kids, so you have another schedule. Things are always changing. So we need to, again, find that balance between structure and flexibility so that you can find a schedule that works for you. So the next step that I want you to do is I want you to identify your big rocks. So bear with me for a second because this is a really powerful analogy. You have a bunch of rocks and then you have a bucket. If you put in the small rocks first, you're not going to have any room for the big rocks. But if you put the big rocks in first and then pour in the small rocks, they'll theoretically all fit. And so your big rocks are your priorities. These are the things that you want to do every day without fail. So for me, walking. I love my daily walk. It's very grounding. It sets my circadian rhythm. It's a very important part of my day for my health and happiness. My other basically big rock is cooking dinner. It's really important to me that no matter what's going on in my day, obviously sometimes we have leftovers, sometimes we eat out, but it's very important to me that I take the time out to meal plan and then make dinner every night of the week, mostly like 5 nights a week. And so these are the big rocks. So going back to the habit issue, so when you think about what big rocks do I need, you might skip some habits in a specific day, but as long as you get those big rocks in there, then you can rearrange your day as things come up and fit all the small little things, the errands, the other demands on your time, the cleaning, all the normal regular life tasks that can really take up a lot of time and take into your whole schedule if you're not careful. You can fit those in between the big rocks. And so that leads into the next point that I have, which is instead of thinking about your schedule on a day-to-day basis, I want you to think about it weekly. This is so helpful because, so for example, I have a creative job. I make videos, I write blogs. If you're not on my newsletter, you should definitely join. And so I am working on all these creative projects all the time. And if I'm in the middle of like an idea flow, then I don't want to get off that wave, right? So sometimes I can't always stop working when I intend to stop working. Maybe I could, but I'm still working on that level of discipline. So what helps me, I know that I want to work out 4 days a week. That is my goal. And so I can kind of think in my head, like, okay, I'm kind of busy today. It's like a deadline day for YouTube, or I want to get my blog out. I'm going to skip my workout today, but I already worked out 1 day this week. It's only Tuesday. That means I have another however many days, 4 or 5 days left in the week. I'm really bad at math, but I have that many days. My count is 4. So, I have enough time to get those 4 extra days in. And I'll just know that I can't skip another day. And I'm good about that, right? Because you have that goal and you align everything so that it works. So that if one day you do run out of time, no big deal. Just do it again the next day. But if that's a big rock for that day, then that's the most important thing. So if I have 3 days left in the week and I know I have to work out every single one of those days, then afternoon Pilates session becomes my big rock, and maybe other things move around. But then you're not, again, stuck to, oh my God, I need to do this, but this happened and now I'm so stressed. And then, I skipped this, so I might as well just quit altogether. Like, you don't even really get into that headspace because you have enough flexibility to move things around both within the day and then within the span of a week. So this brings us to the next point, which is to make life, the life that's coming at you, fit into the structure of your schedule rather than ditching your schedule to accommodate for the craziness of life. I mentioned this kind of goes into what I was saying before, whereas like when I was in college, I didn't take any classes before 10 a.m. People make fun of me all the time. My husband's a huge morning person. We've been married for a really long time, and he still does not quite understand the fact that I do not wake up and go do things right away. And he loves to wake up and go do things right away. So sometimes, we'll have to negotiate that because obviously we both need to get our needs met. But the point is that you need to be proactive and speak up for your needs and make sure that you say things like, I can't do that right then. I'm not available right then, but I can do it at this time. And that time being a slot that you have in your afternoon that's available for those types of activities when you have the energy, when it doesn't interfere with any of your big rocks. Obviously, sometimes things are going to come up. You have to bend your schedule, but that should be the exception and not the norm. And I think that a lot of people don't really feel comfortable being like, well, this is my availability, this is my schedule. And, how is this situation going to fit into it? We want to be accommodating or just be flexible. We want to be nice. We want to be liked. But you got to think about the most important thing is that you are happy and healthy and vibrant and able and can show up in the world as your best self. And then you're able to give that best self to the world. And you can't do that if you don't have the structure and boundaries within your day so that you can show up as that person, because your schedule is the ultimate boundary in your life. It's like the boundaries of how you spend your time and energy. And if you don't have any boundaries in that area, then you're just all over the place. And again, that's when your physical health starts to suffer. That's when your mental health starts to suffer. That's when you get stressed. That's when you get sad. A lot of times, and I have struggled with depression a lot earlier in my life. And that's kind of one thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately. Those times when I was really depressed and it was hard to go for a walk or hard to work out or hard to do whatever. Was it that it was hard for me to get back into my routine? Or was it the fact that I stopped my routine in the first place or didn't even have one? Part of the reason or the whole reason why I got into that situation in the first place. Because if we're not doing things that contribute to our health and happiness, that's when we get into trouble. So the schedule, this idea of finding a schedule and sticking to it, it's about more than just getting things done or staying on top of your to-do list. It's really the very essence of how are you spending your life force energy? How are you living your life? So these are really important things to think about, and it's worth working on. I worked for years to get my perfect schedule, to continue to tweak it and to make sure that it works. And it has to continue to evolve. The schedule that I had when I was deep in healing adrenal fatigue is different than the schedule that I have now that I'm starting to work again. And there's a lot of adjustments, and I'm still figuring out that balance. So it's just a question of continuing to sort of like sit with it and reflect and analyze and think about how is this going for me, and then making the changes that you need to make in order for your schedule to work for you and for you to enjoy your schedule. So one last tip, and this one's really important actually, you need to know how much time things actually take. I have always been late. I'm a late person all the time. And over time, I realized it's because I had no idea how long things actually take. I had no idea how long it actually took me to get ready to leave the house. I had no idea, and this is key, how long it took to transition between activities. So, for example, I do yin yoga every night as part of my bedtime routine. And I was always kind of running late and on the second half of my bedtime routine, and couldn't figure out why. And And then I realized it takes me a solid 10 minutes to get ready for yin yoga. I brush my hair, I put on my pajamas, I brush my teeth right before I get into bed. So that's not something that I have to do right then. But there's all I putter around. And that's part of my winding down time. I could like whip on myself and be like, Suzanne, no more puttering around. But that puttering around is what really helps me unwind and start to relax. So it's really about working with your natural inclinations rather than trying to force yourself into a structure like we talked about in the beginning, and noticing how long does it take you to transition, noticing how long does it take you to be at the gym or to cook dinner or to go to the grocery store or to clean your house. Because a lot of times things take twice or triple the amount of time that we think that they take. And there's a famous quote: people overestimate how much they can do in a day and underestimate how much they can do in 10 years. So, thinking about that, we all think that we can cram so much into a day, and we all have those like ideal days that we are super women and we do get it all done. But that's not every day, that's the exception. And when we try and hold ourselves to that high standard, that's when we set ourselves up to fail. And that's when you don't stick to your schedule. You have to build in room for exceptions for life. You have to build in slack into your schedule so that you're not booked solid end to end, because that is a big reason why people aren't able to stick to their schedule. They don't account for things not going perfectly. And if you know anything about life, like, I don't know, it's taken me a long time to figure out, and I have to keep reminding myself. But if there's anything that I've learned, it's that nothing ever goes perfectly. There's always unanticipated issues or time crunches or things that you have to do. So instead of like getting annoyed by that, just be like, all right, that's going to happen. There's inevitably going to be things that pop up. So how can my schedule account for that? And then when you start to account for those things, then you start to be able to stick to your schedule. And that's when thinking about things in that long term instead of the week to week rather than the day to day really starts to help. Because if you're not able to do something one day, then you can do it the next day. The one caveat is, of course, if you find yourself week after week not getting to something that's important to you, then you need to look a little deeper, do some more introspection, figure out how to shuffle things around so that you can fit it in. So, like if I miss 2 weeks in a row of hitting my workout goals, then, it's time to reevaluate. So let me know in the comments below which step really resonated with you. Let me know if there's any specific questions that you have about anything in this video or anything not in this video. I'm happy to do a follow-up if that's something that you guys need. I love video suggestions, so definitely let me know. And then obviously, if you like this channel, definitely subscribe. It does help the algorithm a lot to show that you like this video if you give it a thumbs up. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.